Welcome to People Over Politics. I'm Josh Barnett. I'm running for United States Congress, District 7 here in Arizona. I'm brought on my good friend tonight, Matt Leibowitz, who Matt knows that we are always at odds, but we do agree on a couple things, and we're gonna kind of dive into one of the things that we do agree on tonight. And Matt, welcome to the show, and glad you can make it with me.
Appreciate you having me on, brother.
You know, you have my co-host Chris had a family issue with his daughter. He had to get her to practice, so he couldn't make it tonight. So, but you know, one thing Matt and I have always believed in is that people need to sit down and talk things out. You know, people need to sit down and have, you know, valuable conversations instead of just screaming and yelling at one another like we see all too often. But you know, one thing that happened this year obviously is the COVID situation, and Matt and I have seen pretty much eye to eye on a lot of the situation that's happened, even being, you know, what we call opposite ideologies politically, but we do see eye to eye with this. And Matt, what do you think, or I guess coming from you, with the mask situation and stuff that you see in public, why do you think the heavy push for using a mask? Do they really believe it's medical, or are they just pushing it for some other reason?
Okay, so I guess you and I we see eye to eye in general, but I will say unequivocally, the virus I believe is real. I don't doubt that or question that at all.
Yeah.
And it's transmittable, but wearing masks, I understand, is a good thing in so much as, can it slow down the spread? Sure. Is it beneficial? Sure. To the extent that we're seeing it, I think is extremely excessive. Mm-hmm. And then the mandates, I think, is where I draw the line as far as, you know, you and I, we can talk about rights and freedoms, but it gets to a point now where I think it's overblown to the point where, again, if you can't walk into a place without a mask on, you can't. I mean, I have clients who have to exercise with masks on.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I'm not saying that there's a health risk from wearing a mask. It's just, again, you and I agree on this.
Yeah.
If you feel that in fear of the virus, then don't go out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't go out. But if you're going to make the rest of us completely alter our way of life to make you feel a little bit more safe, mm-hmm. That's where I draw the line, because now you're infringing on everybody else.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's one of those things I keep telling people. Listen, if you're, like you said, if you're that scared or that much fear towards this virus, then you just need to stay at home. But the rest, the other 90% of us want to go live our lives. You know, when you look at the fatality rate, just the numbers by themselves. You know, under 70 years old, the fatality rate is 0.02%. You know, so that means the vast majority, especially the people that we know that we're around, are under 70. So, you know, why can't the rest of us go live our lives like you said? The flu is 0.1%. So that puts it in perspective as far as 0.02 to 0.1. So, you know, it's crazy to me what, like you said, what is being mandated. When something's being mandated, it's completely different than just, hey, we would like you to wear one if you can. But, you know, these masks only work. Typically, like an N95 or 100 will only work in a sterile setting. Typically, you know, like in a surgery center or a hospital, those things clog up. The N95s actually, it'll protect you, but it's everything that you're breathing out is going right into the air, so it's not protecting anybody else out there. And my whole argument too, another argument is with a mask is if somebody has a mask on and I don't have one on, if they really work, then why are you worried if I wear one or if you wear one? You know, so there's so many just logical arguments to make with the mask that kind of get lost in translation. But what do you think? Now I know with the mandates.
Well, let me before you
Yes.
you continue. 2 points you made two valid points that I want to kind of embellish on.
Sure.
Essentially, as far as the masks are concerned, if you are wearing a mask in a controlled setting, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But these masks are not being worn in controlled settings.
Yes.
And people soil their masks almost as soon as they put them on. Mm-hmm. So your mask is no longer a clean mask. I have to wear a mask all day, and I touch my face about 1,000 times a day, and I'm constantly readjusting my mask.
Yeah.
I know I am soiling my mask. So it is not in a controlled setting. It is not sterile. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the day, when I take it off, it is anything but clean and sanitary.
Yes.
So most people wearing their masks are touching things and then touching their mask and then touching things and then touching their mask. You can't possibly believe for 2 seconds that all of a sudden is a clean mask that is doing exactly what you're expecting it to do. Number one.
Yeah, no.
And then number
exactly
two.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and then number two, you made the comment about the death rate. Mm-hmm. That death rate is among deaths that are coded as COVID deaths.
Very true.
So we're going down a whole different path if we're going to go on a tangent here as far as what's actually coded as a COVID death, what percent of the people have actually been tested, what percent of the people who actually have had the virus didn't even know they have it because they're asymptomatic. So we're going down a whole different path of numbers that are completely flawed at every level. They've been readjusted multiple times. And I'm a science guy. I'm a believer in science.
Yeah.
But if you can't get your facts straight, then you have to understand the issue that's causing with us, because we can't even get straight answers from you.
Yeah, you're right. Over 50% even of the tests are false positives. So how could you even if they, let's say, coded somebody that was died of COVID, did they really die of COVID if half the tests that you're doing aren't even COVID? that come out right? Like it's some false positives, but. Yeah, that's a whole nother, animal. We can attack that. Let's with the numbers, because I know you like numbers, and we have, about what they say, about 160,000 alleged COVID deaths, and I've spoken to some different doctors, like I told you the other day. I spoke with Dr. Urso, and I had him on with me last week, and he says that at least according to what his knowledge is and people he's spoken with and stuff he's seen, he said at least half. Probably closer to 75%, but at least half of the people that have been labeled COVID deaths are not COVID deaths. They are the heart attack that tested as COVID, or the cancer patient that was stage 4 cancer that died of COVID, or that kind of thing that was happening around the country. And we think about that, we if that is true, if half of that number is true, and it's 80,000, which is still, we don't want anybody to die. We all agree on that. But that number is equivalent to the 2018 winter flu season, where 80,000 people died from the flu, the regular flu like we have every year, and that's with that's with us having a flu shot, So it's one of those things when you compare and you think, man. If that what Dr. Urso saying is true, which would not surprise me at all, I believe it is true, and I believe it's actually even higher than that percentage wise. But if they shut down have done what they've done to our economy and to everything that was happening, and put this type of stress on business owners and businesses and people like you, Matt, working and having to wear a mask all day, and for something
being shut down multiple times.
Yes, being shut down, and then for something that was less than the common flu of a 2018 winter flu season, that would probably really make a lot of people mad. And I think that's why they're going to continue trying to cover this thing up until like people like me and you and other people around the country speak out and dig up the information. They're going to do their dangest to try to hide it, I'd imagine.
Well, and to that end, again, you made the comment. 80,000. No one wants anyone to die. Yes. Neither you or I want anyone to die, especially unnecessarily.
Of course.
But like you said, at this point, we don't even know the true number of the people who have died from this, and the consequences on every other walk of life and every other bit of our reality are dire because of the response to this. So if you want to talk about suicides are way up. Depression and alcoholism are way up. People are gaining weight. They're calling it the quarantine 15, as though like it's a funny catchphrase.
Yeah.
But metabolically challenged people are the people who are highest risk, and at the same time, they're eliminating our ability to exercise or to social gather, do anything active, including our kids.
Yes.
So you're telling us that the best thing we can do to combat this is be healthy, but at the same time you're eliminating anything that keeps us healthy, but at the same time keeping places open that knowingly lead to being unhealthy. The fast food chains are open. There's no limits on anything that is truly unhealthy. But sure enough, gyms are getting shut down. The very, very, very arbitrary measures being taken to specific industries restaurants that are now being shut down, by the hundreds nationwide,
Yes.
because people can't get together. People are losing their jobs because of it. People's
Yes.
businesses are being shut down because of this. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses shut down because of the response to this.
Yes.
And again, I don't want anyone to die,
Yeah.
but the dire consequences of this response are worse than what's actually happening from the virus.
You're 100% right. And another big one they've been speaking on. Some of the MCSO at the gym I spoke with, they were talking about domestic violence cases are up significantly, during this time period as well. And it's almost like, after a while, I've always said, like, people, we got, for example, Dr. Fauci's a smart guy, right? We can all agree that he's a smart guy. When you have people that are smart people and they're consistently wrong and consistently making bad, I guess I don't want to say predictions, but wrong on. This guy's been wrong so often, and smart people aren't wrong that often. It leads you to wonder, what's really going on. Is there something else we don't know? Is there, what it is? But you see, like you said, they're shutting down gyms. They're shutting down ways for people to stay healthy, to lose weight, to stay healthy, not be obese, lower blood sugar. All the positive things that come. Not to mention the mental release you get, the stress when you're training. But then at the same time, they apply even more pressure on us as parents, like we talked about, Matt, the other day with kids in online schooling. You're putting pressure. Like I got an office set up, or my office. I have Bentley set up in my office half the time doing his schoolwork and with his teacher online. Because Bella and I have to work. We got stuff to do. We got to be places. We got, I got to do things. And I know you're in the same situation where, you got to take care of that. And you got kids at different ages. Luckily I just have, one kid, 5 years old with me, but you have multiple kids, different ages that are in different classes, and it makes it extremely difficult for you.
And we have to, I work all day. My wife travels for work. So I have two kids home all day. The third kid is, goes with my wife. She's not in school yet, but even that creates an issue because now she has to go somewhere with the baby. Mm-hmm. I'm at work, and the two oldest kids are stuck at home with no resources to help them in case they have issues, in case something goes wrong. They're on their own.
Yeah.
I can't afford to have someone come here and work with them through that. I can't afford to not go to work to help them through that. So these two kids are doing, and I don't even fault the teachers for this because they're doing the best they can.
Exactly.
But this is insanity. These kids, this is not how these kids need to be growing up. This is not how they need to be learning. And this is a disservice to everything that they're trying to accomplish right now.
Yeah.
The kids who aren't going to, these older kids who registered for colleges who are now told you're not going to get in-person instruction, you're going to do online instruction, but we're still going to charge you $75,000 tuition this year. That's insanity.
Yeah, it's frustrating, man. When I saw the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, they're like, 100 people tested positive, and I'm like, and I, like I said, I have to bite my tongue.
Out of how many freaking people?
Well, I don't want to come across as the not showing a lot of sympathy or empathy or whatever, but okay, how many people died? Nobody. You know what I mean? Like these college age kids are not dying from COVID. They test positive. They're probably asymptomatic. Most of them, I'll bet you, probably 98% of them, probably 2 out of the 100 might have had a sniffle. But these kids are not dying from this, and they use it as an excuse to shut down the school after a week. Or being there for the week, they're all excited. They're there. You're on campus, and then you have to go home. I mean, I would be so mad. One, I'd be mad as a parent. Two, I'd be even more mad as a kid. All excited to go to college and be with your friends and go do your thing and learn and do the best you can. And then to have it just stripped away from you over some nonsense. Because if the death rate was, significant, I would completely understand. We all would. But when it's, like you said, when it's less than 0.02% and probably even lower for that age group, it's probably even less than that. It's basically, it's practically statistically like non-existent, at that point. And you're shutting down schools, and like you said, but they're still collecting that tuition. They're still collecting that tuition, and it's just
35,000 students that are paying that, and 100 of them tested positive. So we're going to shut down until all 35,000 students minus these 100. Hey, you got to go home because these 100 tested positive. So your entire year is canceled.
It's just nuts. It's just crazy to me. And I look at it and maybe I'm just being, I don't know. Maybe I always joke. Maybe I'm just being too conservative, like my viewpoint on it, And I'm like, because I try to look at things objectively and not throw like emotion and different. I'm just looking at numbers and I'm like, nobody's dying from this. Why are you shutting the schools down? Like, what? There has to be another reason behind this. What else is going on? It makes you wonder, And I don't want to like kind of go down that rabbit hole with that, but after a while, when you look at this stuff, okay, you're shutting, like you said, you're shutting down businesses. I heard in Arizona, we have about potentially a third of businesses in Arizona that close won't reopen.
Yep.
That is
insane. Not just Arizona. We're talking nationwide, brother. We're talking we're talking across the country.
Hundreds of thousands of businesses will be permanently closed over something that is 0.08 less than the flu, and that's a maximum because, like you said, these numbers are being fudged. They're being fudged, and they're making money. The hospitals have made more money this last month than any time in history. They're racking up the dollars on this. And when you look at the I guess monetary incentivization is built in from the top down with these hospitals, they're counting everything as COVID. Literally everything is COVID that comes through. And I have a coroner that we're trying to get on with me. I won't say what county he's from, but he's the head coroner of one of the counties here in Arizona, who wants to speak out. He's scared to, and I'm trying to get him to speak out off camera, disguise his voice, that kind of thing. And he's telling me that he's been told to label everything as COVID, no matter what, because they make money. And he's had people come through. He said, I asked him, well, what percentage actually had COVID? He goes, honestly, easily less. I can count out of 100 people, maybe one actually had it and died from COVID. And that's just because it's a harsh flu that, basically is what COVID is in a way. I guess you could describe it as like a super flu, super pneumonia. And he said one. He goes, and then he brought up too, which I've been screaming about for months now, but he brought up the treatment or how they're treating these people that have COVID and have symptoms, treating them early on. And he brought that up. He brought up the prophylactic use with hydroxychloroquine, using that with different countries that have been successful with that, and some of the studies that have been out on prophylactic use. But he brought up the fact that he has a friend of his, a doctor further back east, that was not prescribing prophylactically, but early use, kind of like Dr. Zelenko is doing, and Dr. Ursa, some of these other kind of personal doctors. And he said when he prescribes it early on, he hasn't had one person die. He's worked with, I think he said 110 people that have had COVID. Not one person has died. He had a few that were kind of came to him pretty bad off. And when he started the protocol, they literally within 6 to 8 hours bounced right back and ended up, were perfectly fine. So it's very odd that our governor here in Arizona wrote an executive order to stop the use of hydroxychloroquine prophylactically, when the hot spot of Arizona and pretty much everywhere has been nursing homes, older people in nursing homes with a lot of comorbidities, and then also out here the Navajo Nation has suffered quite a bit. But again, the Navajo Nation, the people that they're working with have a lot of comorbidities as well. So, but for go ahead.
I'm sorry. Continue.
No, I was just saying for Ducey to play or interfere with the doctor-patient relationship and say that you can't use this prophylactically, when we can show him with studies, and many studies that have been out now about how this can work and help people. Why shouldn't that person have the right to try that and go, hey, if this can help the older population and save people, why would we not try it? Why would we let these doctors make that decision and not the governor? Where do you kind of feel with that and what's going on in the nursing homes around the country?
That's a perfect point. I was literally going to make that point. It's, again, because I've seen studies for and against hydroxychloroquine, so I'm not going to argue for or against it. Yeah. What I'm going to say unequivocally is if your doctor thinks it's the best treatment for you, then that's a decision you and your doctor need to be able to make. Mm-hmm. Hands down. That's, again, politics should not interfere with that in one bit.
Yeah.
The comment about Fauci earlier, Fauci earned his position. By all means, he earned his spot. He didn't take the spot because he wanted to be famous. But Fauci's a scientist and a doctor. Fauci's not, he has no dog in the race when it comes to the economy or how his advice is taken.
Yeah.
So I don't follow everything he says to a T in so much as, he's not making decisions for us. He can say, here's what I recommend based on the stuff I know, and I believe, what he's saying.
Yes.
If he thinks wearing a mask is beneficial, great.
Yeah.
Then people should be able to wear masks when they want.
Yeah.
But I don't have to wear a mask, the way I'm looking at it, like you said.
Yes.
If you're afraid, then you can stay home, you can wear a mask. But, he makes comments that are based on his science and on his findings, but the issue is where his science interferes with our way of life. And again, like you made the point, very well multiple times. If the death rate is at a point where it's problematic, above and beyond what we're seeing with this, above and beyond what we see with things that cause death every day, again, obesity, smoking, things like that people aren't doing anything about.
Yeah.
You're going to shut down our way of life because he says, well, this is what I think would be the best thing to prevent the spread. Well, great. That's the best thing that you think to prevent the spread. But if we do this, it's draconian and it's going to kill our country, kill our economy, and the consequences will be so bad. Then you have to weigh the consequences and say, what, this is what we'll recommend. This is what we should do. But again, you make the comment about nursing homes. 85%, at one point, 85% of the deaths from this were from nursing facilities.
Yes, you're right. Yep.
Well, I have a family member who's in a nursing facility. She's 92 years old, lives by herself on the second floor. Prior to this pandemic, she was able to walk to and from her room from the first floor. She has now been stuck in her room, basically as a prisoner, since March. She is now in a walker. Mm-hmm. She is literally now losing her ability to live because she's basically trying not to die from the virus. So we're at a point now where rather than go out and live our lives, we're gonna sit and die, waiting to not die from this virus.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I remember. Yeah, that's a sad story, man. Because this is happening all the time, everywhere right now in that population, and it comes down to like with this situation. I've been saying it a lot. Is look at the facts and not facts over fear. Basically, look at the facts of what this is, and the treatments that are out there, especially now. We're better at treating this now than we were, like 4 or 5 months ago. Things that come up, ivermectin, remdesivir. Of course, the combination hydroxychloroquine, zinc, azithromycin has been out there for early onset, prophylactic use. But we have,
and even Mayo is recommending other natural remedies as well.
Quercetin has been very popular. Quercetin and zinc combination.
Yep.
That's if you can't get hydroxychloroquine, use quercetin. I think that's a very good one that I know Dr. Zelenko has been pushing a lot too for that. So there's and vitamin C, obviously. Anything's going to boost the immune system, but if these populations are being almost like abused in a way, I guess you could say, these nursing home populations, it's just so odd to me that any governor would go out of his way to stop a use of something that could help them. You know what I mean? It just blows my mind. I can't believe he hasn't rescinded the executive order yet. It's just one thing that really irritates me. It just gets under my skin. Because I really believe and Dr. Urso told me, Dr. Zelenko's told me that they believe that people are dying unnecessarily. The ones that actually have had major issues with this virus, they're dying unnecessarily. They don't need to, because we can treat this if we treat it early. And there's a 99.97% success rate with it when it's treated early. When it gets in, they say when it hits day 5 or 6 is when that cytokine storm just spreads throughout your whole body, and then it's very difficult to survive. Like, it really drops the odds down. It's like a 50-50 shot. When they put you on a vent, you're pretty much done for at that point. Which is scary.
Yeah, vents aren't even working.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary at that point. They said when this thing hits that day 5 or 6, they said if you treat it before that is when they have virtually 100% success treating it early. And if you go on their Twitter pages, Zelenko all day long is like yelling, and Ursa, all these guys are like yelling, like, what the hell's going on? Why are we not treating this early? They're basically saying we don't need a vaccine. We have a quote vaccine right now. If you treat it early, you're not going to die from this. They don't care how old you are, how many underlying medical conditions you have. If you treat it early, they're like, you're not going to die from this. And then they start posting studies, like one after another, all over the country, all over the world, different studies that have been done now because we have more information. And I'm just looking at it, reading it, like, what the hell is going on? This is just insane, But the ramifications economically, like you said, I have a neighbor of mine across the street. He was working at Mountainside Fitness, and he got laid off today.
Yep.
And I told him, hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to hear that. And he was kind of moving on. He found something else he's doing, but I could tell, it was like, how many people that we know, that both of us know, and even in the fitness industry especially, because they seem to be targeting the one thing that keeps people healthy for some reason, which is a whole nother issue. But when you see that, and I was pissed off. I was mad. I was like, this guy, not just here, but the governors across the country that are doing this, setting these executive orders and these mandates and everything, and it's like I said, it's on both sides. It's not, Ducey's a Republican.
Oh, this is not a partisan issue. No, absolutely.
Yeah, Ducey's a Republican, and then you got Newsom in California, and I just use that because Metroflex Oceanside, and we it's the same issue. It's the same issue, and it's
you're going to talk about those executive orders, and again. There's always a consequence, and sometimes it's an unintended consequence, and sometimes it's a consequence that they just don't care about.
Yeah.
But my dad and I go to lunch every Thursday. The restaurant that we go to is now shut down.
Oh, jeez.
When we were going and they were open, when again talking to the waitresses because they're operating at 50% at best.
Yeah.
And talked to the waitress, and she said her tips are way down. I mean, she's just not making the money that she used to make, and this is she's in college. This is what she's doing to pay her bills, and this poor girl busting her ass and can't make any money because they're keeping her business shut down, and now the entire place is shut down. I deal with a bunch of doctors, nurses, and business owners at the place I run.
Yeah.
And there's a gentleman, I'm not going to name the chain.
Sure.
But he runs a chain of pizza places in the valley, pretty successful. And he says right now they're blessed that they're at about 75% to breaking even.
Yeah. That
they're blessed that they're losing money every month, about 25%. But he feels lucky because they're even still able to be open. And at this point, he has had to lay off a ton of his staff. A lot of his stuff is not in person. His takeout business is basically all he's got.
Yeah.
So he has employed dozens of people in just the Phoenix metro area, and that all those people are now without work. And it's not like, if you're a waitress, you can't just go to a different restaurant and say, well, my restaurant sucks, I'm going to go somewhere else. They're all shut down. You're not going to make money anywhere in a situation like this. So what are those people supposed to do? That's a perfect job for someone going to school.
Uh-huh.
These people are hard workers. They're considered front line. They're busy all day long serving people like us, and now they don't even have an option.
You're right. Think about at least when I was growing up and we were growing up, a lot of the people, and I'm sure it's the same now, a lot of the waitresses and waiters that we see, that we deal with, and bartenders or whatever, they're a lot of times they're college kids. They're making money to go through college. A lot of them, it fits their schedule, and they're doing it, and they're doing their thing, and to have that ripped away on top of the whole school situation, this is like, I can't think of a worst possible scenario or decision making to do what they're doing right now. I look at I always kind of looked at South Dakota's Governor Noem as like the gold standard for how to handle the situation. Very, very constitutional. Hey, hey, you're smart enough. If you want to wear a mask, great. Just like we're talking, she did this the entire way through, and they haven't had any major problems there. Hell, they even had Bike Week in Sturgis last weekend with 250,000 people show up. They didn't, so far I haven't heard anything about it, anything negative at least. I'm sure we'll hear here and there, but this I feel the way she, and from the minute I saw how she was talking about it, using, hey, wash your hands, like use sanitizer, try to social distance when you can. Be smart. Be smart about it. And the people up there haven't had a problem any worse, actually less than most other places around the country. And yes, they are. The argument is they're spread out a lot more than New York City or something. Well, you got to take into account, like you said earlier, New York City, a vast majority of those deaths came from the nursing homes. They sent COVID patients to the nursing homes. So, and I'm not saying it was obviously not purposely done, but that was a bad decision. And to know that population, we knew about that population was susceptible to this even way back then. So when I heard that, I was like, what the heck is he doing? And then sure enough, these people started dying from this super flu that was hitting them, with all, with the older population. And I was just like rubbing my temples at night because at that point in time, we had the Metroplexes shut down for a little bit there, and I was just every day went by and I was built up just anger in me. You know what I mean, with what I was seeing happen, and
it's your way of life. It's literally it's your livelihood. That's how you pay your bills. Yeah. That's how you take care of your family. Yeah. You provide a service to all of us who go there to improve ourselves.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to that. The consequences of these actions have been so ridiculous and so nonsensical, and the impact of the consequences of these terrible decisions is worse than the impact that the virus itself would ever have.
Yeah.
and again, you go back to and again, I continue to preach. I'm not one of those, my freedoms are being infringed or anything. But our way of life has been completely just altered, and the fear that some people have of just human contact at this point. Yeah. If you get close to some people, if you're at the store and you get too close, there are people that will literally back away from you like you literally have the plague. It's insane. I don't even recognize the country that we live in. These people don't even want human interaction anymore. They would rather be shelled up at home or alone in the store. There's no communication. There's no interaction. That's unhealthy in and of itself for a population. This is not how people. We're a collective people. We're supposed to interact. We're supposed to have germs. We're supposed to have immune systems. We're supposed to do these things. Yeah. And these arbitrary decisions are literally shutting that down.
Yeah, it's so hard for me because you've read up on it. I've read up on the whole situation. But when we had, for a while, and even now, and this is on both sides, we have a media that was putting this information out, putting the fear of God into people. Like, you're going to die if you go outside, if you don't wear a mask. You're going to die. Don't you dare communicate with grandma. Like, they almost made it look like you're going to give COVID through the phone, through FaceTime to grandma. It was so bad.
Literally, that's almost how it sounds.
Yeah, and the media pushed this this I don't even know what you want to call it, propaganda. I don't know what you even want to call it, but they pushed this angle on COVID that was just not backed by the numbers. Every day I would go look at like AZDHS.gov. And they were like, oh, my God, 180 people died today. And I look at the deaths for COVID, and I'm like, no, it went down from last week. It's going downward. And then they're like, what they were doing is they were back counting deaths from like way long time ago, like maybe 2-3 months ago. And they were actually moving COVID secondary deaths to primary. So they were literally, like you said earlier, they were counting as a primary death and not a secondary or thirdary or fourthary, depending on how unhealthy the person was. But they were actually moving it and then recounting the deaths as deaths, for COVID. And I'm like, this is a lie. This is a fraud. This is fraud. That's what this is.
The numbers above and beyond that. If you watch the news, they'll tell you that there are 5 million cases. No, there have been 5 million confirmed cases since the beginning of testing. You don't know how many freaking how many cases there are at this point, but you're not going to show the recovery rate. Yeah. You're not going to show the survival rate. Mm-hmm. The only two statistics you're going to see on the news is the number of cases that have been recorded and the number of deaths.
Yeah.
Because why report the rest of it?
Well, they're like, we've had this many people test positive. I'm like, well, it's because we tested 70 million people so far. We've tested more than the rest of the world combined, just here. So it's like, obviously we're going to have more, quote, more positive tests, even though we know over half of them are false positives or not true. But it's like, when you look at the numbers and you break it down, and if you're under 70 years old, you really, honestly, you have nothing to fear. If you do, I suggest taking quercetin, zinc, vitamin C, and that's straight from Dr. Zelenko. That combination keeps you extremely healthy. Work out, eat healthy. If you're over 70, take some extra precautions. But we got to quit living in fear. We have to look at the numbers, and like we've discussed tonight, and Matt knows as well as I do. We had able to reopen Metroflex, but reopen some other facilities around the country just by moving to the private, which just basically means that I choose not to follow the emergency orders. We're a private membership association, and allows us our constitutional rights to decide what we want to do. If you want to wear a mask, great. If you don't, whatever you feel like doing, be smart, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer. We wipe things down. As a facility, I'm getting that fog mist disinfectant twice a week for the entire gym. And
even then, Josh, we live in the gym. You and I spend our lives in the gym. We spend our days and our lives in the gym. I have a better immune system than most.
Yep.
I'm not, I don't even go to the gym worried about if that machine is disinfected because I have an immune system in the first place.
Exactly. Right.
If you ever watch War of the Worlds, I always go back to this example. War of the Worlds is an advanced alien race that takes over the planet, and they're killing us at will. They could easily rule this planet, but they die because they don't have immune systems, and eventually the bacteria from this planet beat them. They're not beat by humans. They're not beat by any intellect. They're beat by germs because they don't have an immune system that we earned over the course of millions of years. Uh-huh. That is how we have developed the immunities we have, and we are at this point with all the sanitation that's going on. I have doctors who clients of mine who have blatantly said, if you over sanitize, we're going to get to a point where germs that haven't had an impact on us are going to start to have an impact again.
Yeah,
things like the common cold are going to start to be more dangerous. The flu is going to be more dangerous. Other things that we have basically built up immunity to are going to come back.
You're exactly. That's a great point. And it's it's funny too because when we use like Simple Green, like a lot of gyms do, it's antibacterial. It's not antiviral. First of all, so
right.
It's not really stopping anything as far as that's concerned. But and that's a great point you made about our built up immune system over millions of years. It's just like with amoxicillin or something. If you use it all the time, eventually it quits working. It doesn't work as effectively. You have to use something else. And that's why I always tell people, if you're sick, try your dangest not to just go pop a Z-Pack right away, especially when you're younger. When you're younger, what are you going to do when you're 80? So
right?
You better hope they have some new drugs out, right? So
Z-Pack won't work anymore.
Yeah, so or you have to take like triple the dose or something. You know what I mean? Like so it gets then it gets dangerous at that point. So that's a great point to make about building up a good, strong, natural immune system. And again, that comes back to the lack of healthiness overall in this country. There's 300,000 people that die from obesity every year, not to mention smoking on top of that. And there's no one ringing alarm bells about that anywhere. Exactly right, man. And that's what we need to be doing. And Matt and I both do that on a regular basis. We let people know, listen, how our country is right now, physically is just, it's unacceptable. I mean, 65% obesity. People smoke, they drink excessively, they eat fatty foods, nasty foods.
I got a good one for you, Josh.
Yeah.
The other day I'm going to pick up food, trying to support my local restaurant still, and two guys sitting outside the restaurant with their masks hanging off their face, smoking their cigarettes, and then they put their masks back on to go back inside because that mask is going to keep them safe. Like that's where we are.
That's funny. I saw a video somebody made, and I could not stop laughing. I don't know if I even reposted it, but it was actually a guy sitting in his car with his mask on, and he was vaping through the mask.
That says it all. That literally says all you need to know about the mask.
I go #mask work, and I posted it. I think pretty sure that's what I did with it. But man, it's because I get so irritated when I see Mask Up Arizona and all this, and I'm like, oh, you're killing me with this mask thing because I know they don't work. A bandana is not going to keep you from getting COVID or anything because the micron size of the virus is like 0.125 in a bandana or even a surgical mask won't stop that size of COVID coming out, So
Correct.
It's
Correct.
crazy. They're like, well, it attaches to respiratory droplets, and that's what stops it. And I'm like, well, what if it hits the mask, quote, into respiratory droplets and stops it? But we live in Arizona. It's 115 degrees out. Wouldn't that evaporate rather quickly and just blow right through? Just
right.
Stuff like that people are like, they kind of look at me like, I never thought about that. And well, in Arizona, that's the first thing I thought of when I heard respiratory droplet I was thinking, how quickly would that evaporate and how quickly would that COVID just blow right through that mask, So,
well, and then you got to love the people who also wear the gloves, because the gloves are going to keep them safe. And they'll use their gloves, they'll pull out their phone, they'll pick something up, they'll touch their mask with their gloves, they'll get in their car with their gloves. So the only thing that they're keeping safe is their hands. Their hands are now germ-free.
And then they'll put they put the phone right up to their face and talk on it, on top of it,
Yep.
And my favorite is when you see people driving by themselves with the mask on.
Right.
Even
walking outside. I see people walking outside or in their mask.
I'm like, it is 110, 115 degrees, and you're by yourself walking outside with a mask on. It just shows you the level of
fear.
Fear. It has to be just straight up fear, or just why. I get the question too. Well, why would our government lie to us? And I look at them like, are you being serious? Are you being serious right now?
Even you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum, but come on.
Well, we talk about it all the time, how corrupt our government is. You know what I mean? From both sides. Right. And we discuss this, and we're like, because I told you the other day, I asked some people, and I'm like, do you trust our federal government? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then why are you wearing a mask? Like, who told you to wear the mask? And they're like, well, government, I guess. And I'm just shaking my head. Do you understand where I'm coming from? And they kind of, so they took the mask off and they started talking to me. So hopefully I changed two people's perspective. You know what I mean? But
they live in fear, bro. And a lot of these people pick and choose what they're afraid of. They'll go to this place, but not to that place. There's no continuity. There's literally no logic to some of their decisions. They'll go to this place because they'll think this place is okay, but they won't go to that place because that place is not okay. They're the same thing. If you're inside with these people, if you're touching these things, you're gonna go to the grocery store. The bagger, the cashier's gonna touch on your stuff, but you're gonna have your mask on. So congratulations. So you're gonna go home and grab everything those people just touched.
Well, that's the governor here. Like you go to Target, you go to Walmart, you go to Costco, you go Fry's or wherever, but don't you dare go to Mountainside Fitness and work out, because you're gonna get COVID, even though there's not been one case that they can prove for anything that's come from a fitness facility. Dr. Chris herself, Tom Hatton, straight up asked her, do you have documentation or proof of any case that COVID has come directly from a gym or a fitness center? She's like, well, no. But you're shutting the guy down. This guy's losing millions, tens of millions of dollars. And
laying off his employees.
1,300 employees he has. 1,300. And they're all jobless right now. And when I heard that, I got infuriated, because just, like being in the fitness industry, what I mean, you kind of, Matt, as a business, what it takes, like how much time and effort and money and everything you put into a business to have.
It's your life.
Yeah.
It's your life.
And then to have it just literally, not that you failed, to have it taken from you, like purposely singled out and taken from you. I couldn't stand back and watch what was happening longer. And we'll see. Wait till about Monday this week. I don't want to say anything, but wait till Monday this week and see where things are. I'm praying for Mountainside to bounce back. Honestly, I mean, people think I'm crazy because, well, you own Metro, folks. What do you care about Mountainside? Well, the thing is, I don't want anybody to fail. I don't want anyone to have 1,300 job. Not to have a job with 1,300 people, and I don't ever want to see a governor mandating things that are just irrational and illogical and whatever word you want to use. There's no science to back up anything this guy's doing. Here, not just in Arizona, I feel like I'm picking on Ducey, but not just here, but all across the country, and it needs to stop, so I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts, Matt, on anything related?
No, I'm enjoying the DNC, so I know.
I was watching a little bit. Yeah, I was watching a little bit.
Well, it's funny because
I fell asleep. It was too boring.
You know what? I'll give you that, brother. I'm actually a progressive. I wouldn't even consider myself a Democrat at this point because the Democratic moderates in the establishment they disgust me at this point.
Well, I was joking today. I said progressive equals communist. Hey, no, I did hear AOC speak. Isn't it weird they gave her just 1 minute? I found out a little.
That's strange. The establishment. That was I said that because my daughter's is getting more political and she listens and she's trying to learn. And she said, "Why are they only giving her a minute?" I said, "Because the DNC puts the show on, and she's a progressive. She's a Bernie, and they shut down Bernie 2 elections in a row. They sure as hell aren't going to give her any more time to this. So this is what we're stuck with." So,
did you hear? You heard what she did at the end. Bernard Biden.
Yes,
she's trying to get a Bernie in there somehow, right?
No, she was. It was Bernard Sanders. She was actually nominating Bernie for the presidency. So. Technically speaking, when she was looking to do it,
she was
I was educating my daughter on it. Well, she was trying to create a contested convention, which
not going to happen.
Number one, I don't want because obviously I want to beat Trump, but watching the politics play out, you see even the Democratic Party is split because people like myself they want something completely different than what the establishment is giving us, and the establishment is broken. That's why that's why Donald Trump got elected because people wanted something different. I get that.
Yeah. How do you feel? And I know we've talked about it before, but like with Bernie Sanders, the last we know what happened in 2016. He got ripped off. We even this year, I could clearly see that he was going to get ripped off again. How do you think? I mean, I know how. Give us kind of your feelings, like you said, on that the establishment versus Bernie or Bernie supporters. How are Bernie supporters? Because in 2016 they were mad, and some of them voted for Trump or just didn't vote. What do you think people feel like this year going into this election? At least how you feel.
So that it's an interesting question. Everyone knows that I'm extremely anti-Trump, so I'm pretty much an anyone but Trump person. Yeah. But I still have my beliefs, my core values that I hold true, that I vote for, and I'm a progressive, and it has sickened me to watch. I mean, I've watched because I watched MSNBC. I don't watch typically CNN, but even MSNBC is so establishment that I have to pick and choose the shows that I'm willing to watch because I don't like the rhetoric. I don't like the bullshit. And there has been Chris Matthews lost his job on his show because he was blatantly anti-Bernie.
Yeah.
And he eventually got shut down. So watching this stuff, it drives me nuts. And again, I go back to the DNC put this convention on, and the people that I support aren't even getting a chance anymore because the establishment is so powerful that it shut them down. And we will never move past where we are. Our system is broken, and everyone admits it. Everyone agrees. But then they continue to vote in the same people who are giving you that same problems and that same broken system. At what point? And I get it. I understand why people voted for Trump before. I hate him with my heart and soul, but I get it. I get you're sick of the establishment, so you want someone who's going to change it. You want someone who's going to shake it up and give you something different. Bernie Sanders, for me, was that perfect person. He was exactly the policy person.
He was your Trump, basically, on that side.
Exactly. He was the anti-establishment on the other side of the spectrum. Exactly.
Yeah. I feel the same way about Fox News right now because I pick and choose. I can't watch Fox. Like I watch Tucker, I watch Mark Levin, and I'll watch sometimes a little Laura Ingraham here and there if I have time. But typically I'll watch Tucker and Levin. That's it. I can't. For me, I can't watch it because it's too establishment. It's too much establishment stuff for me. They're throwing down their throats, and I hear Chris Wallace's voice, and it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. When I see that guy, I'm like, oh, you're this guy. I literally turn the channel immediately. I can't stand seeing it. But
that's how I feel about the whole primetime lineup on MSNBC.
Yeah, it's like you have your one or two people, and that's kind of it. But what on the Democrat side is there a I know, like, for example, on the Republic, or what we call the Republican conservative side, not even Republican, but conservative side, we have like OAN, we have Epic Times and different outlets. What is there on the Democrat side that people like? What do you listen to, or where do you get other news from?
So I personally, and again, there are accredited, places that try to give really unbiased news. I'm a nerd. I listen to NPR constantly.
NPR, okay.
NPR has a lot of information. I get the New York Times. I get their updates, their email every morning. I do read Wall Street Journal articles because I try and get from multiple different sources. But the NPR, PBS, New York Times are my primary sources of information because I really want info. I don't want just the rhetoric.
Yeah,
and then I want info, and if I want any rhetoric, I have a couple shows on MSNBC that I'll watch. That will and you have to be just like anyone else. You have to be able to pick between the facts and the rhetoric. And
there's some shows that are pretty opinion shows, right? Like the fun opinion shows. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, it's I'm kind of the same. Like I said, I pick and choose a few of the people that I like. I like them. I like because they're conservative, they're constitutionalists, or whatever. But it's hard to decipher the information today because of how much misinformation and stuff that's out there. For both sides. Really, to be honest with you, it's both sides. And that's why I just encourage people. It's funny. Matt and I always we always said that if we set you brought up PBS. And I said it earlier today on a show I was on just before this that PBS reached out to me 3 days ago, something like that, Monday, and they asked if I would be interested in debating Ruben Gallego, and I was like, yes. And so the ball's in his court because I let him pick a day and time that they had listed. So, but PBS, I agree with you. PBS, I feel, at least tries to be as unbiased as possible to put out some information. You know what I mean? And
they try to put out information, not just rhetoric.
Yeah, that's really what we need in today's world, but it's hard to come by because that there's basically 6 companies that own our entire media. So when it's that monopolized, we're only going to get so much actual news. You know what I mean? But you really have to decipher through, and it's even hard for me or you, to decipher through actual real news versus somebody's putting a spin on it or skewing the numbers or data behind the scenes before we even see it, So it makes it
that's why I enjoy it, even to someone like you, because I disagree with a lot of your opinions on politics. Yeah. But if you have information that you can share, I'm willing to read it because I don't want to be an ignorant, voter. I don't want I want to know if there's information that can prove me wrong. Then prove me wrong. Yeah. I'm not one of those people who wants to be told everything I just want to hear. I want to know the facts. I want to know what's going on.
I think I always use you as an example because we're so opposite on a lot of stuff. But Matt and I have both agreed on in the past that if we, even as opposite as we are, much like Congress, right? They're kind of opposites. That if we had to go sit down on an issue and we're in opposites, that we would sit in a room, lock ourselves in there, that we would come up with some type of compromise solution to fix the problem as best we can. And that's just a loss. That's lost nowadays. It's a loss.
Right. It's a lost art.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's unfortunate that we have Congresses from both sides, Republican and Democrat, over the last, decades that are too busy worried about power and control versus what's best for the country and what's best for America. And
100%.
And they need. I literally would like to lock them in a room and go fight it out. I don't care if you guys literally physically fight it out, but
right.
Fight. Don't mess with Jim Jordan though because he's a wrestler. You don't want to mess with him. But literally, I'm at the point now. I'm so fed up and frustrated with politics as far as what's best for the country. Because that's one thing I know that that Trump appealed to a lot of people was put America first, put Americans first. That was like something that appealed to a lot of people out there, and bringing jobs back from China and bringing taking care of us first instead of this globalist thing and then help others. You know what I mean? Kind of like the oxygen on you first before you help your kid. Because if you don't, you're going to pass out and you can't help anybody. So I believe that, I think we need to take care of our own and still help others outside of that. But I love, I see this even with something to me that comes across as very bipartisan. They're going to fight no matter what, and it's both sides. You know what I mean? They're just going to do the opposite because it's the Democrat or the Republican.
Right?
And
someone's got to win.
Yeah, and they're just not doing what's best for the country, and that's why we have so many independent voters today. In Arizona, we have it's like thirds here. And that means there's a lot of really mad people with both parties that went independent. And and that shows you.
I'm on the verge of that myself. That's how disgusted I am with the DNC, brother. I'm at that point now where I have found myself outside the box. So again, you look at Trump the same way I look at Sanders. Sanders' goal in my eyes was to do what's best for the American people, what's best for us and then the business and everything else of America would improve because our lives inherently would be better. That he would create opportunity and education and healthcare and everything that Americans are so desperately in need of that our current government is absolutely dropping the ball on every step of the way.
Yeah, because they're too busy. Like, there's no reason healthcare can't be improved. There's no reason. You pick a topic. You know what I mean? We can name it for anything.
Right. Education, healthcare, you name it.
We had like the border. We've had stuff happen with the border. And Paul Ryan dropped the hat. Or dropped the ball, I should say, and on the goal line. Then the same thing. We've had Democrat, Republican presidents. We've had Democrat, Republican Senate and Congress and so forth, and it's always the same crap over and over and over. And I feel that there's, at least I'm just speaking from the Republican side, just because I know that a little better, but I feel that there's some, I wouldn't say necessarily younger Republicans, but maybe newer to Congress Republicans in the last couple of elections that are really, truly fighting what's best for America and not just an ideology or anything, necessarily concerning that. Because I see stuff they put out and I'm like, why is that not happening? And then I see, and it's not Nancy. It was Paul Ryan before Nancy, and now it's Nancy. And then whoever the next speaker is, if things don't change, it's going to be the same way. It's going to be this constant infighting. Nothing gets, and I understand our government was set up for that in a way because we want to make things difficult so that you just can't pass something with like it was nothing. You know what I mean? Like it's so easy that you just pass it. I get that.
But common sense legislation shouldn't be so hard.
It should be like, man, this is like, even me and you on certain issues, we would have this done in like half an hour.
Right.
But we don't have an agenda for power and control and self-interest. And not only that, big pharma and all these other people being bought off, that's a whole other issue with that me and you wouldn't have to deal with. But these people are bought on both sides, are bought off, and by these giant, big tech, big pharma are buying people off, and nothing gets accomplished. And that is probably the number one problem that I see of why things don't get done in Congress and the Senate is those two in particular.
Lobbyists rule the world. I mean, it's
until we take that money out of there somehow. It's gonna. I don't see it ever changing. Maybe I think maybe term limits could have an effect with that.
Eliminate gerrymandering. I mean, there are a handful of things that you could do to get other people, take the power away from the powerful. Give it back to the people.
Somebody. I mean, for me, nobody should be there for 40 years, 50 years, 30 years. I think for me, four 2-year terms as a congressman, 2 Senate terms, as a senator. Obviously, the president gets 8. You could. I even believe in potentially limiting Supreme Court justices to 20-25 years instead of lifetime appointments.
I fully agree. I actually I read a whole article about the Supreme Court being limited to 16 years, and that way you're essentially guaranteeing that every president would get a pick for someone on the Supreme Court. And there would be consequences for your votes at that point. You couldn't just. Because once you're on, once you're on a federal court like that, there's no consequence. You make whatever decision you want, and it doesn't make any difference. Imagine if there's consequences for your actions.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that, and we also, take into effect that if you're a congressman or a senator and you got a ton of money behind you, right, and you're just gonna, it makes life easy when you're running. And half the time these people don't even have opponents really. These people that have been there for a while. It's like people are like, kind of, what's the point of running against this guy because, he's been there for 25 years and he's got $3 million in his bank account. Just because. But and what they do is that they don't like. Let's say like right now, if Democrats don't like Trump or Republicans didn't like Obama. Well, we'll just wait it out. We'll just win a few more elections and wait it out till he's gone. We'll get our guy in there, and then we'll start shoving legislation down people's throats. You know what I mean? And that's what they do. And it also puts us in a situation that kind of like China does with us in a way, in a similar situation where they can ride it out. She's going to be there forever. They're going to ride it out. We don't like what Trump's doing, but we're just going to ride it out till he's gone. Whether it's 4 years or 8 years, we're going to ride him out, and we're going to get somebody into this China friendly, or what they consider China friendly, and whatever side it's on, and they're going to ride it out until that happens. But if we keep I think if we keep fresh blood and fresh eyes and fresh everything in there, that it can really be a positive for this country. And I put a poll on Twitter a couple times over the last year. Do you support term limits in Congress and the Senate? And it was like 90-something% yes. And
overwhelming.
That was conservatives on my page primarily. And that's coming from the conservative side. So I know from speaking to Democrat friends, they all believe the same thing. So, it's hard to get Congress to vote against themselves. So that should never be a career. You're being a senator shouldn't be your career. Yeah. Well, it's never meant to be, as you know.
Correct.
It was. I mean, the founding fathers never meant for anybody to have. You're supposed to go back and practice law, or go be a farmer, or run your business when you're done. You're not supposed to be
exactly.
Here forever.
Exactly.
So it should be no different now, as far as I see. But yeah, that's I always felt an important point to make, that both sides kind of agree on. I see congressmen on both sides pushing legislation. They'll be, oh, well, I got this passed or this bill to look at, and it's purely partisan. It's not going to pass. It's almost like they do it just to act like or look like they're being busy. Look how much I've gotten done. I'm like, yeah, but how many got passed? They're like 0. And I'm like, what's the point? Because it's a purely partisan bill. It's not going to work. So why don't you do better to reaching across the aisle and finding something that's going to work, or just move on to something else if it's not going to work, period. Quit wasting your time.
The biggest problem they're going to run into every time, and you and I both know it, that if it's anything that's going to upset the establishment, it's going to get shut down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That whoever's in control of that particular committee, it won't even get heard. It'll just get tabled and tossed to the side. It's just in the committee situation, not even at the speaker level. So
exactly.
I see that all the time when I was reading up on certain congressmen, even the one like Rubin or something. Like it's he got this act and this act. Yeah, but none of them passed because they're so. And I read through them, they're so partisan that no Republican's ever going to agree with what he's saying. And then I see it on the opposite side too, and it's almost like I said, they just want to act like or look like they're busy. Well, look, I did all this stuff. I co-sponsored all these bills. Yeah, but they're all partisan bills. No one's even looking at that stuff right now. So
right. Well,
I don't know. It's both sides that do it, and I think it has something to do with, I just want to look busy so it look like I'm doing something.
Yeah, well, and I one final thought, because I got to go take care of my kids because it's school night.
Yeah, we're just finishing up. Yeah,
we are, in the end, the American people are the ones who need to make the change, because a few points. Number one, Congress has like a 13% approval rating and like a 92% re-election rating. So if we are so disgusted with the job they're doing, how can we keep voting the same people in? I mean, we are responsible
blows my
for that.
mind every time I hear it, and I that stat just. It's mind. I would say it's mind-boggling, just like on Will Ferrell,
I know. Obscure reference, I get it though.
Yeah. Yeah, but
that's I mean, if we're voting in the same people who are giving us those problems, then you have to at some point look in the mirror and say, okay, what can I do to change this? Everyone likes to say, well, your congressman is a problem, not mine. No, they're all the problem. We need people who are going to go in there and change this. You need to be. And the other thing is, these poor Congress people, because again, we are part of the problem here.
Yeah.
As soon as someone does reach across the aisle, the hardcore base will lambast them for them. They're not even allowed to reach across the aisle because they're considered weak or pathetic, or they'll be primaried for it. That can't happen. That's supposed to be what they do. They're supposed to reach across the aisle. We can't punish them for that.
Yeah. No. I agree with you. And I see. What's funny is I say this all the time. I'll say it briefly. I know we got to get out of here, but you got the people on the far right and the people on the far left, right? They're both highly emotionally charged on both sides. So they're so quick to jump down people's throats, for every little thing, like you're saying. If they reach across, oh my God, what's he doing or what's she doing? Why are they even talking to that person? Why is Matt Gaetz talking to AOC? And I'm like, why not? Like maybe they agreed on something. I don't know.
They're supposed to talk. That's what they do.
Maybe they're talking about the Cubs game. I don't know.
Right?
But it's like big news. Like they jump down people's throats. But I think a lot of, like you said earlier about the 13% and the 92%. Again, I think term limits can help fix that.
Yep.
I agree. I don't know. Call me stupid, but I think we're right. So, but hey, man,
I agree, brother.
I want to thank you for coming on with me tonight and talking. I think it's good that people understand that you can be on opposite sides, still have a conversation, and find things to agree on and work and expand on those. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
I appreciate you coming on. I'll see you at the gym, man. Okay?
Appreciate you having me on, brother.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
You too.